Yo, what is going on, guys? We are one day from 3.21 League Start. We're going to be talking about the Absolution endgame version that I'm going to be playing. I've spent many hours getting this together and putting all the crafted pieces together in POB and really just figuring out exactly what I think is possible for a League Start viable version of Absolution at the endgame. And I hope you enjoy this. If you do, click like, subscribe, comment down below. POB will be down below, so if you're just here for the POB, go ahead and click it. Don't have to watch, but don't complain to me later when you say something's wrong with the POB, because I probably explained it during this video. So let's jump into it right away, because this is gonna be lengthy. This is a long, and I want to explain everything. This is a long process. So goals of this are to be extremely League Start viable and tanky. I don't like dying on my characters. It's one of the reasons I pick Necromancer over any other ascendancy for minions. That and it just scales the best. But the other goal is to be extremely League Start viable. What I mean by that is everything in my gear set is either self-craftable or farmable or extremely cheap. And the other thing I want to do with this path of building, so I've intentionally left room for flexibility in decision making. What this means to me is there are mods that are just flat out missing on items in my POB. If you don't understand why, it's because I just feel they're not important. They're not super impactful. Anything impactful I have listed. This is a template, not a guide. Nothing is concrete. Got to use some decision making on your own. Got to use some intuition to figure out. I have fire res here. I need fire res here. You need your res. Whatever item you have, you need to figure out your resistances. Don't just go. I have this. That's what I need on this item. That's not how this works. So use the POB as a template. My guess is my DPS effective hit pool are actually low. What you will see if you follow some sort of guide like this. So that is my caveat to this POB. It seems, and when I say it's going to be lower, it's pretty impressive because I think the numbers we pulled in this POB are going to be quite good. We'll touch on that towards the end of this video. Let's talk about the gear. This section is going to be the longest, and I think it's pretty important because there isn't a lot of necessary items. But we'll jump into the first few right away. Biggest one for me is the +2 level of all minion skill wand. This is a convoking wand, and a lot of people will see this one and go, "Wow, that's crazy. That's not League Start viable." I think, and it just is. I mean, if you're not getting to 1,000 chaos, or you're not gonna plan on putting 1,000 chaos into a build, I just wouldn't bother watching YouTube videos. Then I think. So the Convoking Wand, I want to start this preferably with a T3 or higher minion damage fracture. League Start, I don't know if that's possible on like good budget. I know I bought one for like 1 divine last league, but this is a super easy craft. You basically just slam this with a corroded jig and metallic shuddering fossil resonator. Likely this takes 12 tries. The estimated cost is 719 chaos worth of fossils to get this done. And basically this is the one that I crafted last league for a minion build I was playing. You see it has fractured increased damage, +1 all spell skill gems, +1 all minion skill gems, and then the trigger craft. And this actually just randomly rolled T1 increase attack cast speed. It was probably one of the best ones I've ever seen, or I've crafted on this like low of a budget. So that's the things that are possible with this crafting method. Alright, up next, Darkness Enthroned. Check my last video. One of my plans for League Start is to farm Abyss. I'm going to look at every Darkness Enthroned. I want a really good roll. Now that it rolls from 50 to 100 instead of being stuck at 75, I want to get as close to 100 as possible. I think this is an insane buff to this thing. The one question I have about this is, we'll see if they change the drop pool on Abyss items. We don't really know how that's going to work. Alternatively, if this does become difficult to obtain, we will use a well-rolled Stygian Vise with 1 Abyss socket. Next up, Shield, Bone Spirit Shield, just classic minion stuff. And I guess kind of listed out here what order of importance of what I think the mod should be. So the picture you have here is one that I picked up from Axe in like Act 9 and just unveiled. This was it. Or Roll Wisdom, and this was it. This is like a good one. This is like a good shield. This will get you 2 red maps. I guarantee it. It has a room for crafting life too. I just never put it on. But if you're looking for the GG, like League Start viable endgame, League Start Viable endgame version of a Bone Spirit Shield, it's going to look for +1 minion skill gem, life, and then minion offenses or defenses. And then finally, life gain on block is to be used if you feel like your recovery is low. I don't think recovery is going to be a problem on the build that I'm putting forward here, though. Next up, Bone Rings. Bone Rings were interesting because I don't think they're super necessary. They're necessary for the minion offenses, but they're not necessary for the elemental resistances they apply. We are already res capped without these, but if you feel like you're not res capped, or if you feel like there's another way to accomplish getting your minions res capped, then you can do something other than a Bone Ring, or you can like try to corrupt this for a different implicit. I did mention here the passive trees and implicits from these rings alone will likely cap elemental resistances for minions. You can even get the mastery for +8 max ally res on minions if you feel it necessary. In my experience, elemental resistances don't cause minions to die. It's more of fizz dots and chaos dots. So, Amulet. Ignore the pictures of Ashes of the Stars. This is definitely the best in slot for this build, but it's super not viable for League Start. If you get lucky, and it drops for you from your like T8 map version of Eater Worlds, great, use it. It's the best in slot, 100%. But really the only thing required on your amulet is +1 level of physical spell gems. You can also do all skill gems. I suspect level of physical will be cheaper. This will give you a +1 to level of determination and absolution. Remember, absolution is a physical spell that converts to lightning. So other role I'm looking for on an amulet is life. Everything else. So this is interesting because I'm kind of like copying out to save some time. I'm just looking from like almost all the rest of my gears, like life, cap resistances, and it is extremely important to have armor on your helmet, body armor, gloves, and boots for the +1 max ally res mastery. You can see here from my POV, we ended up on a character with like 77 all res, max spell block chance. We can actually get our block chance higher. This was just like where I decided I felt pretty comfortable saying this is a League Start viable end. Important Eldritch mods, because all these will just be rare items. We can put Eldritch mods. There's no special influences needed otherwise. Drop Spiritual Ground from boots is by far the most important DPS increase. Allows your absolutions to actually start like critting pretty regularly. And then both of the body armor, you want increased zealotry effect or wrath effect, and increased aura effect. Increased aura effect is a huge buff for all your minion damage. One of the easiest ways to get increased DPS. Let's talk flasks. Not this is the most fun topic, but there is one that I think there's one unique flask that I think is required for the build, and that is Rumi's Concoction. If you're not familiar with Rumi's Concoction, it is a granite flask. It gives you plus armor. It also gives you +%, like up to 12% chance to block attack damage and up to 6% chance to block spell damage. This is how we get to the spell block cap and closing in on the attack block cap. Other necessary ones, I would run a life flask while leveling, and a quicksilver, of course. And then after that, it's really personal preference. I'm probably going to run an amethyst and a quartz. Quartz is super nice just for leveling. You have a lot of minions on screen. It's easy to get stuck. So that. If you're looking for high-end upgrades, Bottled Faith is the biggest damage increase, and Progenesis is the biggest defensive increase. So I'd look for those. But those are like not, these are not in the POV. I would not consider these for beginning in game. Jewels. Alright, Ghastly Eye Jewels, of course. This is another reason I'm running Abyss. We're looking for flat life. I go for 30+. Minion damage and using a minion skill. Flat minion damage I think is going to be very, very strong. Remember that our fizz on Absolution converts to lightning, so flat fizz is really good. I put energy shield on there. Might not need it. Important note for Ghastly Eye Jewels, you will save a ton of money rolling these yourselves. So save up your alteration, orbs of alteration, and try to do it yourself. I find it like a nice relaxing process at the end of the night. Try to make some new jewels after I'm going to log off. So that's me, but I'm kind of a weirdo about that. Gems. Alright, going forward, we're going to be flipping back and forth between slideshow and POV, so bear with me. But I think it's important to look at all the possibilities for these gems. Obviously, the most important one for us is Absolution. I consider these top 4, like, you can't change these. These are the biggest This is the core. Absolution, Spell Echo, Minion Damage, Fist of Lightning. These are the biggest damage increases. Without these, you are just leaving damage on the table. Spell Echo feels a little clunky to play with. If you really, really dislike Spell Echo, I mean like really dislike it, the way it feels, you gotta figure out some other way to get like more cast speed. Because without this, you are, I think it's like literally like 40% DPS. So, there you go. Other than that, what I look for is increased crit damage, that's crit chance. If you want to go for the crit route, that's what I'm going to be going for. Summon Phantasm is like pretty good for clear speed. It's not great though. And Lightning Pen. So there's an interesting dynamic here that I want to look at in PoB that I found out. What ends up happening is you kind of need to make a choice at some point where you need to balance out chance to your chance to crit with your lightning penetration. And what I mean by that is if we go look at our skills, Absolution. If you have Lightning Pen and Assassin's Mark as your curse, I'm PoBing at like 7.6 DPS. If you change Assassin's Mark to Conductivity, we go up to 7.7. So you're like, okay, that's good. But you should now switch from Lightning Pen because you are now like reducing lightning resistance is enough that you should go to increase critical strikes instead, because now you're up to 8 million. This is the optimal DPS damage, is to use Conductivity and full crit. But I think this requires you to get like crit off the ground first. And this is like comes after you're able to drop Brittle Ground. This comes after you get like a little bit of crit chance to minions from your mods. So I think it is really important to like PoB this as you go to figure out which like links you should finish off your Absolution with and which curse you should use. That's one of those situations where I really mean you gotta know what you're doing. Okay. Spectres, one of my favorite mechanics in the game is actually Spectres, so I love talking about them. We use all buff utility Spectres. By far the best one for our build is Primal Rex Matriarch, which is from Harvest. It gives a increased lightning damage debuff to enemies. It's huge. It's one of the only ways we're getting increased lightning damage debuffs. It's another DPS scaler that we don't normally get access to. I recommend running every Harvest. Do not block Harvest on your passive tree until you get a Primal Rex Matriarch. Next up for me is the Chieftains from Ashen Fields Act 6, basically from Act 6 until I get my Primal Rex Matriarch. These are the only two Spectres I'll use. These are Frenzy Charge and Power Charge. Frenzy Charge is more important than Power Charge, at least until we are doing crits with Absolution. Last one, when we get to a level 25 Raid Spectre Gem, you can have 4 Spectres. It would be a Baronite Cleric. These are from Baron maps, so this will come very late. And this gives us an extra Fizz as lightning buff to all our allies. Honorable mentions if you get to a level 25 Raid Spectre before Baronite Cleric, or if you just don't want one of these. Vaal Seraphim from Beyond is quite good. It gives I believe it gives a increased damage taken debuff as well. Could be wrong on that one, but I think that's what it does. And Wild Bristle Matron is actually a really good defensive minion from Harvest. Recommend checking it out. It does like a big slam skill that I think it stuns, so very cool looking, or at least chills or slows. I think it gives like a slow effect around them. Animate Guardian wouldn't be a minion build without talking about Animate Guardian. It's like kind of a love or hate skill. I have mixed feelings on it. When it's alive, I'm happy. When it dies, I'm sad. So this is my tried and true like Animate Guardian skill setup. Leercast, increased damage buff. Truth Cools is like necessary because of the life regen. This will keep your Animate Guardian alive through things nothing should live through. I will use Rare Boots with Drop Spittle Ground implicit. Look for like move speed, Drop Spittle Ground, life, Chaos Res maybe. That's for your Rare Boots. It's not going to be anything. The implicit's the most important part. Southbound for your gloves is just a big percent life increase. Huge for Animate Guardian, then Dying Light for the weapon. Obviously, if you can afford Kingmaker, do Kingmaker. It's crazy expensive now though. Dying Light is a good replacement. One thing I've been testing out is a Legacy of Fury plus Gravebind combination for Animate Guardian. It actually helps with clear speed quite a bit, but Legacy of Fury is very expensive early game because pretty much all the Righteous Fire bros use it. So that's more of a once the price of Legacy of Fury comes down, this is a good combination for clear speed. Alright, we're getting to the end. Auras. My permanent auras are Determination, Zealotry, Tempest Shield. Pretty standard. Need Tempest Shield for spell block and shock immunity. It is very, very strong. I would not recommend this build if you're not getting spell blocked. Just because we're not doing any other sort of spell like suppression. We're just getting spell block chance and increased max res. Next, we're running Wrath plus Divine Blessing. I would hard class Wrath instead of using Divine Blessing if I could. We don't have enough mana. I think the one thing we're going to notice about the POB, if you take a look at it, is that we don't invest in the mana reservation a lot. We get the node over between Witch and Templar. Other than that, we are not like anointing Charisma. We're not anointing anything that's going to give us max preservation finish. There's nothing else on our stuff. We're just using what we got to really keep this budget down. And then we're also using Precision plus Arrogance. This fixes minion accuracy. If you didn't know, you actually do need some flat minion accuracy to get them actually hit stuff or hit stuff consistently. It also gives us crit chance to our minions, so this just works out perfectly. The important thing to recognize here is if you choose not to use Precision, you do need to reserve life somehow. Or you don't need to, but I'm using the Mastery on the Reservation Efficiency that gives us +1 max res if we reserve both life and mana. So Arrogance on Precision ends up costing us like 400 life. Let's see. Yeah, like 400 life. Costs us like 8% of our life pool. Super worth it. Obviously our EHP is super high. We can afford to lose that life. Passive tree. Let's talk passive tree. Because it's a pretty standard passive tree setup. The only thing I really want to talk about is we're grabbing these defensive notes here for our minions. This is like, Fizz reduction is huge for preventing giant bleeds and Fizz dots from killing your minions. It's one of their biggest downfalls to dying, so I'd super recommend this. We're using spell block nodes to get capped spell block. I'm using the new life regen mode here with the mastery because we're constantly spawning corpses. We recover 10% of our life for 3 seconds. And we're using the new masteries for +1 max res armor and +1 max res reservation. And those are the important things. You don't need to use a cluster, by the way. I have it in here. I think it ends up being the best. But you do not need to use a cluster. This is probably the last thing I'd add to the build. I would honestly add the Enduring Composure small cluster jewel in here first before adding the large cluster jewel, if that is something you're looking for. Alright, now time for the big elephant in the room. Talk about Vaal Absolution. My opinions on this is we have no idea how good it will be or how to scale it properly. There could be something really broken. I keep hearing people talk about Triumvirate. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth giving up that ring slot. Don't think it's worth having another gem in your build. We'll see. I'm prepared to be super wrong on that. I'm going to use it as a button I click for more damage every 20 seconds. That's just my goal. I'm saving for bosses and essence monsters. I do 100% know that when I click that button, I'm going to do more damage, and that is what I'm using it for. So I wouldn't try to keep with on leak start. Is my only advice here. If you want to, by all means, go ahead. Be the one to figure it out. But I'm going to keep it safe. Definitely using Vaal Absolution, just as it's a more damage button for me, not my build. And that's where we're going to wrap it up. If there's anything I didn't mention in this build, it's not because I haven't thought of it. It's because I didn't think it was important. So if you have any questions, leave a comment down below, and I'll try to address it as quickly as possible. Other than that, happy league start. Click like, comment, subscribe, and check out the POV. There's my leveling guides in there. All through the acts, a new tree for every act, and basically everything you need to get Absolution rolling off the ground. That, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks for watching. See you later.